Well, I thought that she was the coordinating minister for the current administration. I thought that without ideological direction, this administration will steer the ship of state into avoidable cataract and iceberg, because at least that is the coloration and pigmentation that the president, that is the body language the president has given us to believe. So I was rather maniacally bewildered that even she got the imprimatur of the federal government for that nomination. But sincerely speaking, if you ask me, I would say that I wish her well, and I do think that if she scales through the Obama order, then I think that will even do us well, yeah, because our economic advice so far has been anti-people. Our economic advice so far has been pro-establishment. Our economic advice so far has only served the microscopic few. That would just be a wonderful lacuna. It will be a wonderful locus poenitentiae to look at the possibility of getting another economist at that level of government who may be pro-people and who may just be in sync with the economic realities of Aminu Kanu Talakawas.
If she fails to get it, do you think she should remain as a minister?
Well, it shows for me. I read a very critical objurgation when she was nominated to serve in this position, and one of that animadversion I read at that time was that she was only even coming to serve as an opportunity to burnish and launder her image and to have a salubrious pedestal to look for this job. And at that time, I was a little bit Didymorphian as to that speculation. I want to say, however, that recent activities seem to have given a copious emblematization to that reservation that was expressed at that time. So from that point of view at all, I want to say that it will show that she's already had divided loyalties, and even if she didn't get the job, it shows a vote of no confidence. For me, it shows a vote of no confidence by the international community on a capacity for economic husbandry. Because after all, the clout she came with, the propaganda she came with by Western bourgeois economists was that she was the best of the best, and that in the sanctum sanctorum of economic Western imperialism, operating within the shared board of international monopoly finance capital, she was an economic prima donna. And if she just fails to get the job, for me, that is a vote of no confidence.
Now, let me ask you, should she leave? Do you have somebody you think would be appropriate for that position?
Well, of course, I cannot. There are a vaudeville of personalities. I mean, if that question were asked me 5, 10, 15 minutes before now, I mean, it would have given an opportunity to look at the whirlpool of sound pro-people economists we have in the country. But I want to say that a whole lot of persons have proven themselves to have that capacity. Patu Tomi, for example, Professor Patu Tomi, for example, would be a very good finance minister. I can readily point at Professor Patu Tomi. Yes, why not?
Okay. Recently, we all witnessed the show at the National House of Representatives, where the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission came in front of a committee on capital markets. It wasn't a good show for the House of Rep. What is your take on what happened, that drama?
I want to say that the events unfolding in the House of Representatives regarding the Ms. Ote Embe imbroglio is another scandalum magnatum too many for the Green Chambers. I want to say that scandalum magnatum is coming at a time when the House of Representatives is supposed to be strategically placing itself against the backdrop of the myriad of unfolding developmental issues in the country, coming again at a time when one was happy that the House of Representatives was beginning to burnish its image with the Nigerian people. If you ask me my take on it, so far to the extent that the leadership of the House have asked Honorable Emma Embe to step down pro tempore his chairmanship of that committee, I would say that is good enough. To the extent that Honorable Emma Embe has agreed to submit himself, to investigation by the ICPC and the EFCC, I want to say good enough. But I want to say that I catalytically disagree with those who are saying that Ms. Ote should equally step down just because Honorable Embe has been stepped down from that committee. That is because Honorable Embe has not even stepped down permanently from the chairmanship of that committee. He's only stepped down from the investigation of that process to allow for fair hearing, because the jurisprudential rule of all the alterem partem, doctrine of fair hearing, nemo judex in casu asua, has to come to place. So it is patently unfair, like I've had some Spain doctors and some members of the House of Representatives gone to Matonolipos to say that Ms. Ote should resign. That is one leg of it. Another leg of it is that I was a little bit worried when I heard initially that the Ethics and Privileges Committee is going to sit in camera. And I say capital rejectamenta to that. The matter is already sufficiently in the public domain. And for the sake of the public good, the Ethics and Privileges Committee should hold its proceedings in public, before the clear light of cameras. And we call on the EFCC and the ICPC, like Caesar's wife, to be above board, on this matter. If the House of Representatives must be taken seriously regarding the future unfolding events, regarding the unfolding political and economic and social cinematography in the country, then the House of Representatives, like Caesar's wife, have to be above board.
Now, let me ask you, we're in the House, where this kind of thing we were seeing, were they happening when you were there? I mean, bribery and the kind of corruption we are seeing, were they happening when you were in the House?
It's always a challenge. It's not just the bribery and corruption or malversation, if you like, call it defalcation of public funds. Is ossified and sissified into a government dosa in the Nigerian socio-political cultural milieu. It's not just a phenomenon restricted to the National Assembly. It has become institutionalized in Nigeria, even though one must say that to the extent that the National Assembly must be a custos morum of the people. And walking like simply on the streets of Nigeria is not an excuse for the National Assembly to be corrupt, But the point was made that corruption itself has been a challenge, since 1999 in the National Assembly. Corruption itself is a challenge in other sectors in the Nigerian public life, and that is why some of us have said that more fundamentally, we must have an independent EFCC. We must have an independent ICPC. We must have an independent anti-corruption agency that is extricated from the Santa Claustic and executive suzerainty an EFCC or an ICPC or an anti-corruptive agency that needs to seek clearance, from an imperial presidency, would not discharge its responsibility without fear or favor. So, whereas I objurgate, whereas I animadvert, with all sense of virulence and corrosiveness, the challenge of corruption in the National Assembly, I don't want us to personalize it to that institution, because if we do that, then it will mean that we do not understand the extent and the damage. It will mean we do not understand the fact that corruption has become not only a cancer, but has become a gangrene, in the Nigerian sector.
Now, let me ask you, what should Nigerian people do? Because if you're saying that we have to get EFCC that is independent, that may not happen. How do the people force or compel change to happen? What do you recommend?
Well, an English scholar, I'm sure it was John Locke now, was one quoted as eternal vigilance is the price of democracy. The civil society and Nigerians must take more than a passive interest as to what happens in the political class. The civil populace must not see their democratic mandate ending and beginning with the 4-year periodic election. For the Nigerian civil populace, democracy seems to be the terminus ad quo of an election, and the terminus ad quem again of the next election. We want to see our civil